because of the amount of vagus nerve connectivity between gut and brain and how quickly they're affected with each other, there is a big influence in terms of the food you eat and the neuronal optimization of your brain.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My name is Mike Wolf. I'm your host, and today's guest is Mo Abouelsoud, the CEO of You, the Mind Company, a company that makes brain health, wellness, and monitoring technology that is non-invasive, meaning they don't have to put a chip in your brain like something out of a science fiction movie or Elon Musk's crazy wild dreams. And I caught up with Mo to talk about how brain health is potentially the next major category in wellness. It was an interesting and fun conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope you do as well. We will have a new podcast out next week, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's get to my conversation with Mo Abouelsoud. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. And this is a little bit different topic than we normally talk about here on the Spoon Podcast. We're very food-centric, as everyone knows. But I am super fascinated by this idea of increasingly using technology to tap into our bodies, to read biomarkers and help us know what's going on and help us live longer, healthier lives. And so when I was hearing about what you guys are doing with You, the Mind, to use technology that isn't super invasive, like a Neuralink, I became super fascinated and ultimately thought about what the implications could mean for my wellness and long-term health. And so I want to dive into all that. But Mo, before we do that, can you tell people about what the company does today?
We develop brain stimulation devices for many different neurological disorders, as well as cognitive enhancement. So brain stimulation sends these small electrical signals, super small, the same amount that runs in a toothbrush, into certain areas of the brain to activate that region. And so different diseases have different areas that are affected. And so we send the stimulation to kind of activate it so we can build that region back up again. And for cognition, what we do is we actually send it into a region called the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is the part of the brain that makes humans humans.
Right.
You know, ability to talk, decide, able to think, able to regulate, able to absorb, able to feel. That all of that kind of emerges and connects into that frontal lobe. And when you signal those electrical pulses into the frontal lobe, the neurons, which are also electrical, they activate more.
Right.
They activate more, fire. And so you end up strengthening the connections in the frontal lobe to be able to see the world in a more vibrant way because you're more engulfed in your surroundings. You're more focused, you're attuned to the things around you. So that's a little bit what we do at You, the Mind Company.
And again, I'm not an expert in this, but what I've seen in terms of brain tech over the past couple of years have been things like Neuralink and Synchron that are largely devices that have to be surgically implanted in the brain. And that's hugely invasive. Now, obviously, that's probably something that would be great if it can help you solve a problem. But you guys are not that invasive. You guys have, I think you've explained your technology as a non-invasive Neuralink. Can you talk about that?
Neuralink is kind of the big one. Everybody knows, like, if you know brain tech, like Elon's Neuralink. That's like the big name.
Right.
And so that requires having a surgical implant, like a mesh that goes in past the skull on the actual surface of the brain to change and record brain activity. So we can do all of that from the outside. And the reason why we can do that is because we have patented a way to best send signals from the outside without the skull and the skin and all that fat distorting the signal.
Okay.
We kind of invented a way to be able to get into the brain without needing to do the surgery.
And can that match performance though? Because obviously you're going through the skull, you're going through the skin. Those are some pretty big barriers. Do you think that you can match or even maybe outperform at some point an embedded Neuralink type of system?
So for the treatment of diseases like Parkinson's, we have shown up to a 4% in tremor reduction in just 3 weeks. So we are able to modulate brain activity very, very well from the outside of the brain. Now, the problem becomes when it comes to recording. So with Neuralink, they tend to use patients that are quadriplegic, patients who are
Sure.
paraplegic,
Sure.
locked in syndrome. And so that requires high recording fidelity. Any non-invasive imaging, except for MRIs, will not have the same efficacy as something surgical. Neuralink or not Neuralink, something surgical would be better. But having something non-invasive for the entire segment of the population that are not quadriplegic and not have those locked-in syndrome is
Sure.
good enough. You don't need to have an entire surgical implant to be able to interface with external objects. Non-invasive brain-computer interfaces have been around for a while, and the fidelity of the signal is improving every single year. But our real magic, the magic of our company, and that makes it different from actually Neuralink and Synchron, because they don't do this, is not from recording. It's actually from
Hmm.
changing the connectivity patterns from the outside of the brain. We actually do this better than invasive. And
Hmm.
the reason being is because we can change multiple areas of the brain, large areas of the brain, large fibers inside the brain, non-invasively. If you want to do it invasively, that entire fiber, so there is a fiber tract that goes from the top of the brain all the way to the spinal cord. If you want to modulate the entire fiber invasively, you're going to have to figure out a way to surgically get the entire fiber, have a mesh running down the fiber. That is, as of in 2026, impossible. That is not possible. So it's actually easier to do it from the outside of the brain in terms of modulation. So this is where kind of our magic comes in, being able to.
And yeah, and I think that this idea of people who don't need hugely invasive surgical interventions, people who may be biohackers, for example, people who are maybe looking to modulate around just better health and wellness and brain health over time, maybe better sleep. This seems just the path in which you would want to go, because people obviously I personally wouldn't want an Elon created implant in my brain. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
I mean, if I wanted to use something, this is obviously the way I'd want to go. And so obviously we've seen the rise of things like Aura and CGMs that are reading biosignals in our body. Is this kind of the next wave, brain stimulation, to both read our brains, but also maybe help us put it on a better path towards wellness?
That's a great question. So I will first comment.
Sure.
So the answer is yes, sure. But the thing is, I personally, I would never get a Neuralink chip because I wouldn't need it. Like I would, I don't foresee a part of my life which is like, I look at the computer and I'm like, wonder if I can type this with my mind. I can just use my
Yeah, and
hand.
it's irreversible. You have a chip
Yeah,
embedded in
it's
your
like,
brain, and suddenly Elon decides he needs to double the price or wants to actually do some sort of nefarious thing. Remove Elon from this. I just don't like
yeah.
the idea of it.
Yeah. Now, for specific conditions, that's the
Sure.
only pathway. Like you
Right,
have
right,
to
right.
be able, because you can't utilize your arms properly or utilize your legs. But for like me, I try to take care of my body, try to be healthy. I'm super grateful. I don't need that. I don't need the extra intervention. It's kind of like an unnecessary feature that causes a lot of risks. So I don't really need to have that invasive intervention. But the future, especially when it comes to athleticism too, a lot of athletes like the Aura, they like the Whoop, right? They like to have be able to look at all of their vitals over time. A very, very, very important vital is brain function. Okay, what are you doing cognitively? Because if you're not there cognitively, if you're not performing at peak alpha states or beta focus states, then an entire game, let's say you play soccer, can be disastrous, because you're not fully aware. You're not fully there. So the brain is, that's actually got me into the field. It's the final frontier.
I'm just wondering if one of these types of devices that interacts with your brain health through electronic stimulus, for example, can be the next wave of long-term brain wellness and healthcare.
Yeah. So there is I like to do an analogy. There is, those ab stimulators, like you put on your abs and it
Yeah.
kind of flexes your abs. Now,
Sure.
those scientifically actually do work. Like they do flex your abs do, but it doesn't build like the discipline. It's kind of like a lazy way of doing it. But there are many. I know Cristiano Ronaldo, like the best soccer player, he does this. So that's kind of like the indication that it should be working. But we do the same exact thing conceptually for the frontal lobe. Okay, so we tell the frontal lobe flex, 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 go, go, go. And so over time, you start to strengthen the connections over there that when you remove the device, you become a little bit smarter and stronger every single time in the frontal lobe. Brain stimulation, I think, is the next wave. It's an important tool. One of the very, very interesting things that we're living in is a time period where we're like surrounded by data, health data all the time. And it can be a little bit, what's the term? Overwhelming. And we want to be able to be in a position where we look at our health and feel calm and cool and collected about it without being bogged down. I think brain stimulation is one of the few devices, the few types of technologies that is going to stick around for the decades ahead because of how important and integral it is in terms of activating neuronal circuits inside the brain. I think has a very, very important future, especially with elite athletic teams, executives, as well as different recreational biohackers. It's going to be absolutely critical.
So do you think 10 years from now, you might see advertisements in AARP magazine? You've seen like old people say, "Hey, I'm going to start doing my daily origami or
Oh yeah.
Wordle or whatever." So you do these mental exercises and puzzles. Is like this the next thing you might see in terms of aging prevention? Keep your brain healthy through electric stimulation.
Yeah. So no, this is super, super interesting. Since we have not run a prevention study, okay, so we have done studies on patients with PD, Parkinson's
Sure.
disease, and Alzheimer's disease. Now, in Alzheimer's disease, we did mild to moderate. The trajectory of their brain activation and connectivity was reversed across the pathological trajectory was reversed across 12 weeks. Now, what we hypothesize is that, okay, well, if you were to use this earlier, prior to Alzheimer's disease, maybe you had mild cognitive impairment or you're using this when you were younger, then that trajectory hopefully can be sustained. Okay. It's always, always important to take care of your body. It's always, always important to take care of your diet, and take care of the foods and nutrients that you put in. And now having a tool to be able to take care of your brain health as well, it's just going to be part of that magic, to be able to kind of put things off and prevent things off to make sure that you're continually healthy. But we want to run some more studies around that. However, based upon all of our initial clinical data, we definitely suggest that that's a possibility.
And I think the price for your product, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be $350 or so. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so that's for a consumer product that they can bring home. Over time, do you see that being even lower cost for consumers?
Yes. So we also want to build it out such that, and this is what we're building out right now, we're building out a system such that it personalizes the electrical pulse that is being sent to each person's brain. It's personalized based upon your brain activity. And so we'll have a monthly subscription so we can be able to optimize the brain even further, because every single athlete needs a different tailored workout protocol. Every single executive or physician needs to be able to do something to personalize it to their schedule. And so personalization is actually where we're going, personalized neuromodulation. So we want to make it accessible for everybody. We also work with a lot of international partners in developing nations through our early humanitarian access program. So we're fully self-aware of economic instabilities that exist in people's lives. It's important for us to be able to provide a tool to be able to handle those instabilities, handle the trauma that's happening in day-to-day work. So it's very important to us to get that out there.
So the typical way your product would land in the hands of someone, would it be someone who maybe, would it be prescribed to a doctor? What are the ways in which it finds its ways into the hands of people who would use it?
Well, right now our cognitive device is available online. So you can go
Okay.
and purchase it online and we deliver it straight to you. No prescription necessary. This is a wellness device, has nothing to do. Our medical grade technologies are a lot more complex and they are
Yeah.
outputting a lot more power and they're much more specific to different diseases. So those have to be going through a doctor. We're actually running a 200 patient pivotal right now, setting that up. We have that set up. So we're going to be starting it this year to get our products to the FDA to have it prescribed directly to patients. But right now, you can get it online. And even after FDA clearance, we will have a service available where you can meet with doctors online through our portal to a telehealth portal on our website. So you can get it prescribed online too and shipped straight to your door.
You said brain to computer interfaces are not new. These lower cost, more democratized, highly effective ones, if what you're saying is true, do seem fairly newer to the market. So where are we going in 10 years? Like, is this, where will this go? Will this be something that you might find at like a Best Buy or something? Or is this something that becomes a common consumer category like the Aura? Where do you see this
Oh
all
yeah,
going?
no, it will be. And so this is actually where we want to be smart because this is where, you don't want to purchase any product. It could be dangerous. Okay. You don't know the power outputs. You don't know if this is going to be effective. You don't know if that you're getting it from a trusted company that has a lot of clinical backing. And so we want to ensure that when it becomes more available, when it becomes over the counter and you can get it from Amazon. In fact, there is a device you can get on Amazon right now. It's a bad one, but it's still one. And when you are able to get this, you're getting it from a trusted source. So these next 10 years, we're going to see an explosion of brain stimulation devices. I will say right now to the listeners and viewers watching is to be careful. You want to make sure that you do things
You don't want to strap
correctly.
anything on your brain. If the electricity is wrongly modulated, could you be messing stuff up there?
If the waveforms are wrong much, it may not do anything. It may cause even worse sleep, right? It may cause irritation or anxiety because you're messing with the
Yeah.
chemistry. And so that's actually one of the unique aspects about our company. We have an extremely deep specialization in neurophysics, electrophysics, and electroceutical medicine. This is our specialization. We have a very deep understanding of how electricity moves through the brain. It's actually what we were good at.
Yeah.
So make sure when you guys are looking out there, look at our technology, look at other technology, but compare and think and be able to make a right decision.
One of the things that made, I think, the wearables space flourish was support from the big platform players. And so I think obviously the release of the Apple Watch was a seminal event. And then obviously Apple Health and Apple apps that track these things that you can now plug in other wearables is important, that you can plug in Aura data. Do you think the Apple Health, for example, platform that I get on on my phone and I look at how many steps I had, maybe it looks at my heart rate because it's getting that from my Apple Watch, will that start to incorporate brain health data? Where do you see
Oh
these
yeah.
kind of all-in-one tracking apps going? Do you think brain health is going to be a part of that in the future?
I foresee brain health definitely being a part of that, especially with the correlation of your brain activity during like your brain data during activities. For example, if you've been taking walks, but for the past few days you've been wearing your EEG headset or an EEG earpiece, and we've been seeing that your alpha waves have decoherence, that may be a signal of an underlying mood or cognitive fluctuation that we want to address. There is the brain and body acts as a system, one moving unit. When one marker goes up, another one goes down, and they all dance around with each other. Brain is an important marker, okay? And it's actually one of the central markers because it helps control all the other markers, all right? In fact, with our brain stimulation, what we notice is that we've seen not only activation in the frontal lobe, but we've seen activation across the entire cortex. Okay. And that's because the frontal lobe is interconnected. Like a tree. If you shake one branch of a tree, generally the whole branch will, the whole tree is going to start swinging. Do you know what I'm saying? So, no, it's definitely going to be very interesting. What's something that's very important, I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but make sure that it's also secured. All right. Companies like Apple have a great they have a great infrastructure, a lot of staff and money in place just to make sure everything is done properly for their billions. I think is it billions now? Billions of users? Millions or
Probably.
billions of users? We want to make sure that whatever platform you use to see that data integration, even if it's two platforms, that has a proper data security as well.
I think that's right. I mean, I think a lot of people got freaked out when 23andMe went bankrupt, and then ultimately people started flooding to that website to delete their DNA data. Obviously, DNA data is different than brain electricity behavior, but still, like, that is personal data that you don't necessarily want out there on the dark web, for example. It'll be interesting to see over time how maybe your data set can correlate things like the gut-brain axis and nutrition, because I think obviously what we're finding increasingly as we study stuff like microbiome and our gut health, like that has a huge impact on brain health. And kind of that gut-brain axis is such a critical thing. Do you think there might be insights there that might be helpful to people who are following their wellness and monitoring their health and wellness?
We have a device coming out later this year that will be recording brain information as well as brain stimulating. And when the device is worn at specific times throughout the day, and we will guide the person to be able to use it at specific times, we'll ask them things about what they've eaten, what they haven't been eating, or what the trends of eating throughout the week, because of the amount of vagus nerve connectivity between gut and brain and how quickly they're affected with each other, there is a big influence in terms of the food you eat and the neuronal optimization of your brain. For example, if you eat a sweet food, something dessert like a donut, you get this rush of euphoria and dopamine flooding everything. Oh my God, tastes amazing, right? And so we have that very acute brain activation, and that we can be able to see in that neural data. However, over time, you'll start to see the sluggishness, right? You got to see the blood sugar spike, and we can see that subsequent drop in terms of brain data, less activation in the frontal lobe region, more impairment in language for fatigue. We're actually building a dashboard, a data-driven dashboard inside our company that's able to integrate with like the Whoop watches and Amazon Fitbit, as well as connect to other apps to kind of like MyFitnessPal to collect their food, the calories that they eat throughout the day. But we'll be able to take all that data and cross-correlate it with each other to see what foods are causing what moods.
I've used a CGM to track my blood sugar, and it's really kind of fascinating. And I would imagine just another layer of data if you start to monitor brain activity, where you see things like heartbeat, but also blood sugar. And then maybe even if you can start to track your cortisol and your stress levels, adding in brain activity, I think to that makes a much fuller picture. You could probably track in real time what people are doing and where they are from a state of health perspective, mentally and physically, much more closely. So I think there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, and foods is not about just the health, it's the taste, right? Because you can eat healthy food that tastes bad and your brain is not going to be happy, right? And your body is not going to be happy. So it's about that balance, right? Brain is meant to be free and creative and emotional. It's meant to have mood. You want to be able to tailor what you eat to be able to support that as well.
Well, Mo, I really appreciate your time. Where can people find out more about what you're doing with You the Mind?
You can go youthemind.company. That's the letter U, the mind.company, or search up youthemind.com. You can also type in Mohawk like my name, Mohammed Abouelsoud. You guys can find me in my LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn guy. I love LinkedIn. That's my only social media site. So if you want to ask more in-depth questions like today, find me on LinkedIn, please.
All right. Well, Mo, we will put a link to your website in the show notes and your LinkedIn as well. But thanks for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Well, that was my conversation with Mo Abouelsoud, the CEO of You the Mind Company, about how brain health could be the next big wave in overall wellness. So hope you enjoyed that conversation. We will have another podcast, as I said, early next week, so stay tuned for that. As always, go to The Spoon and check out all of our podcasts, and we'll talk to y'all very, very soon.
If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with a friend? And don't forget to give us a 5-star review. You'll find more content like this on thespoon.tech/podcasts.